every night. The sight of insects swarming around the lights feels so commonplace, but this phenomenon still holds a scientific mystery, appeals to insects like moths, mosquitoes, and small flies. Artificial light can be a deadly trap. They can get trapped under the lampshade, or be an easy target for predators, like a spider beetle. Bats to night birds. According to the Valen Owens, Penility, Harvard University, swirling behavior, this fool can even distract insects of important activities, like eating, mating, and reproduce. Artificial light display is also suspected to be one of the causes of the decline in insect populations globally. Then the big question arises, considering the danger, why insects remain attracted to the light. Various theories ever proposed. Some argue that moths, using moonlight as a navigational tool, and artificial lights resemble the moon. Another theory mentions that insects might try to get to the light to escape or seek the darkness. Owens explained that optical illusion, the so-called mock bands, can make the edges of the light areas appear darker compared to other dark areas, so that the insect may gravitate to areas that seem darker it is. In 1965, a researcher even suggested that light might mimic pheromones mating. It's a pretty wild theory, said Yash Sandhi, postdoctoral researcher, D. Florida Museum of Natural History, that studies moths and sensory systems. But at that time, all theories don't have solid evidence yet. He told Life Science, in general, seemingly an insect's response to artificial light is a trap against old evolutionary mechanisms. During most of evolutionary history, said Owens, at night is almost always completely dark, difficult to test. These theories for observing insects while flying is not an easy thing, but new technology is starting to open up those possibilities. In a 2024 study published in the journal Nature Communications, Sandhi, with Samuel Fabian of Imperial College London and other research teams, recording the movement of moths, dragonflies, and various other insects with cameras, high speed. The result is surprising. Moths and dragonflies tend to keep back position. They keep facing the light. Even some of them are upside down, with the body facing down. Of a total of 477 videos, which includes 10 insect orders, the researchers found that all the species observed turns its body when artificial light is lit. These findings gave birth to a new theory that some insects uses light as a direction marker. Usually light means top, and dark means down. Really hard for them to use gravity to know his body position, because they were like swimming through the air. In the presence of artificial light, suddenly half the bright part of the world are no longer where they should be. Sandhi experiment and the team did explain why insects stay around light after arriving there, but has yet to answer how they can detect light from a distance, or why some can get stuck while others don't. Owens noted that dragonflies also show a back-to-light behavior during the trial, but in reality, rarely seen circling around the lights. The moth who does it often. He thinks there's still a big question. Why do moths could have gotten there in the first place? He wanted to retest the theory that moths use the moon as a compass in all landforms. Although this theory is considered less for close-range technological developments, such as more sensitive and methods, more sophisticated analysis might soon allow that. This research world is finally getting tools that can be used to answer this pertanyon. In the meantime, Sandhi findings support advice to avoid lighting from the bottom up, which is proven to confuse the insects if the lights are installed on the floor and pointed up. Insect could literally flip over and fall, said Owens. All this time we didn't realize it. Sandy suggests reducing outdoor lighting. Don't point it up. As well as using reddish-colored lights, whose light is less attractive to insects, and whenever possible, turn off outside lights at night. If it's turned off while it's still dark, many insects that could recover and fly away. Said, as a simple solution, Owen suggested that the summer dinner resolved before it was completely dark. Just enjoy the sunset, because the sun's rhythm is down. In line with the adjustment of our eyes, we can still see well. He added, if the yard remains dark, the possibility of mosquitoes finding it is smaller. How do sea mammals sleep without drowning or out of breath? Mammals like dolphins, whales, and seals have a unique way to rest in a full marine environment. Challenge. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe. Turn the bells on to get the latest updates on our videos. Sleep while floating on the surface. Water is not a safe option because it makes them vulnerable to attacks by predators and lose body heat. So, how can these animals rest without risking safety? This method is known as sleep unisomnispheric, and be away from marine mammals, like dolphins, to sleep in the open ocean. One of the solutions is to turn off half of the brain in turn. Patrick Miller, biologist from the University of St. Andrews, English, as reported by Life Science. This sleep pattern is commonly found in groups of mammals, called cetacean, including dolphins, whale, and porpoise, and apparently also used by many species of birds, which even can sleep while flying. In a flock of birds, for example, individuals at the edge of the herd will open the eyes that face out to keep an eye out for predators. Unihemispheric sleep is very important for these animals because it allows them to stay on at a low level while resting half of its brain. In this case, their behavior being the best indicator about her sleeping patterns. Brain scans on dolphins in captivity shows that when one hemisphere, their brains are in a phase of sleep, in the other hemisphere of the brain, stay awake. A 2008 study led by Miller, using a suction device to record the whale's behavior. Sperm, like dolphins, which is a mammal, the most researched ocean, related to this sleep pattern. In other words, dolphins can actually sleep while keeping one eye open. During this period, they're not responding at all, which indicates they are in a deep sleep phase. After that, they dive back to continue sleeping, and can repeat this cycle for up to 3.5 hours. According to Miller, birds and dolphins using this half-brain sleeping technique for different purposes. Instead of dolphins precisely keeping the eyes facing the group, stay open during sleep, most likely so as not to separate from the herd. Very difficult to measure brain activity in marine animals that we can't capture, like a sperm whale, blue whale, or humpback whale. Miller said, to learn that stuff, researchers put tracking devices on animals. This duration almost equals record for shortest sleep among all mammals that are currently held by African elephants, who also only sleep about 2 hours per day. Results show that these whales sleep in a short time in the open ocean, with shallow diving, slowing down movement, and let their bodies lean upward. This slope may be caused by a pumice oil called spermaceti inside their heads. While sleeping, this herd of whales can be seen in a vertical position, with the head pointed up, just below sea level. Whales can only sleep for about 20 minutes before having to rise to the surface to breathe. Northern elephant seals is also the owner of bihemispheric sleep patterns, with a similar short duration. 2023 study led by Jessica Kendall Barr, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, succeeded for the first time recording brain activity. Sea mammals that are sleeping in the ocean. The research team found that these sea elephants dived to a depth of about 300 meters, and then her brain slows down and enter the REM sleep phase. When it reaches the break phase, the sea elephant's body will flip and spin slowly while still falling asleep for 100 times. In the break phase, they sleep in an upside-down position. Showed that, like a human being, They also have muscle paralysis during REM sleep. Clear Kendall Barr in an explainer video. Likely because of the threat of a predator, elephants only sleep about 2 hours a day, while at sea. Henry is a name, but this name is not a given name to someone, but the name of a 124-year-old crocodile. Henry has become the oldest crocodile in the world. Before we continue the video, don't forget, subscribe and turn on her bells to get update our latest videos. With the dozen decades it's been, Henry has grown into a very large crocodile. This enormous crocodile has a length of more than 5 meters, from snout to tail, and weighed up to 700 kilograms. For comparison, the average Nile crocodile grows up to 4.5 meters and weighed about 410 kilograms. But because he was born in the wild, his actual date of birth is unknown. Despite being named the Nile crocodile species, this can be found in most areas of Africa. Henry is believed to have been born around 1900 among the marshes of the Okavango Delta in Botswana, according to Croc World Conservation Center in South Africa, where he lived since 1985. It shares its current habitat with another old crocodile named Colgate, who is estimated to be 90 years old. After his arrival at Croc World, Henry has mated with at least 6 female crocodiles, which made his guards estimate he has had more than 10,000 offspring in less than 40 years. His birthday is celebrated on December 16th, so he'll be 125 years old the end of this year. According to a British TV show, Killer Crocs with Steve Backshall, Henry was arrested in 193 by a crocodile catcher named Sir Henry, which is the origin of his name, but this story doesn't seem to fit the information on the Crocword website, which claims Henry spent most of his life in the Okavango Delta. Regardless of the background, Henry is of course a magnificent beast. Many factors that may underlie a crocodile's toughness, despite some research, showed that it may have something to do with microorganisms, unusual ones that inhabit their intestines. A study concludes, given the importance of the microbiome intestines on its host physiology, we suspect that the crocodile gut microbiome and or its metabolism produces substances that contribute on its endurance and longevity. Between Kalimantan and Sulawesi, there is an imaginary line, an invisible line, with invisible lines that stretches between the two neighboring continents. Animal kingdom in Asia and Australia, very different. For the most part, wildlife never crossed this imaginary line. Even birds. And that's how it happened. For tens of millions of years, these lines shaped the evolution of animals in a different way. On each side of it, it all started about 30 million years ago, when plate tectonics, Australia hits the Eurasian tectonic plate and created the archipelago, changing the direction of ocean currents and creating new regional climate. On one side, Mapan, Indonesia and Malaysia monkey, apes, elephants, tigers and rhinoceros evolved, while on the other, in Papua and Australia marsupials, monotreme, rodents, and cockatoos breed. Very few species are abundant on both sides. This strange separation of fauna, called the Wallace Line, taken from the naturalist's name, Alfred Russel Wallace, who first realized a stark difference in animal life while exploring the region in the mid-century 19th. We can take it as a sure thing that the Strait of Lombok between Bali and Lombok, which is only 15 miles across, 24 kilometers, marking the boundary, and suddenly separating the two regions. Big zoology in the world? Right whales. The naturalists then developed the theory of evolution independently, around the same time as Charles Darwin. Line he drew in more than a century ago that still considered a hindrance to the evolutionary hypothesis, although the debate continues about location and the exact mechanism. Carly Casella, Menulus the Life Science, In general, Wallace's line separates the Asian continental shelf from the Australian tectonic plate. This is not just a geological line, but also the line, climate and biological, deep-sea channel, like the Strait of Lombok, separate each display, which makes it difficult for animals to cross, even when the sea level in the past is much lower than it currently is. This channel remains, even though the line, invisible eyes Wallace most clearly seen, when comparing mammals in Asia and Australia. This line also occurs in birds, reptiles, and other animals. Even winged creatures usually did not travel across the swallow line. Some types of fish and microbes, showing genetic differences on one side of the border compared to the other side, which shows very little intermingling between populations. Scientists have yet to discover an invisible barrier. What's holding this species back? But habitat and climate may be a factor that accentuates the gap. The evolution. In 2023, analysis of more than 20,000 vertebrate species found that Southeast Asian lineages evolved in an ancient environment, which is relatively tropical. This allows them to spread towards Papua in the humid islands as a stepping stone. In the meantime, wildlife on the Australian continental shelf evolved in much drier conditions that define different evolutionary paths. This means that the Australian wildlife are at a disadvantage on tropical islands, which is closer with line equator, but more and more researchers are studying the wallet line. The more unclear where the line should be drawn and how porous the barrier is, at least for some animals that can swim, float or fly, like a bat, lizard beetle, or apes. According to scientists, Wallace's boundary is not an absolute limit, rather it's more of a gradient. So, a blurred line. It helps us understand the evolution of animals for thousands of species. Mental and actual map of Darwin and Wallace is the table where the evolutionary schemes play out, which is comparable to the geological time scale, says science historian Jane Camerini in 1993. Untuck History of Science Society. What starts as one single line, which was roughly placed, that was withdrawn over a century ago, has now helped shape the bigger picture and more complicated about the world, nature, and its mysteries.
Starting from hunting prey, looking for a partner, to avoid predators. The ability to smell is critical to survival in the animal kingdom, yet the species, which ones really have keenest sense of smell? Apparently, the answer is not that simple. According to Matthias Laska, zoologist, that focus on sensory abilities in Linköping, University of Sweden, there are about 5.8 million odor molecules, and each odorant can combine to form a combination, almost infinite aroma, because only a fraction of these molecules that's ever been tested on any animal species make a general statement like species A, it is better than species B, is an unscientific thing. Laska says Life Science, by email, one of the challenges in assessing olfactory ability animals is because of smell, is the most difficult sense to research. In the book Olfaction, in Animal Behavior and Welfare, mentioned that research on smell left far behind compared to the study of vision, hearing, taster, or feeler. Scents are difficult to control and measure with precision due to its pervasive nature, different behavior in the air and in the water, and vary greatly in chemical composition. Even so, the researchers have uncovered fascinating clues about the species, which one might be the king of smell. One way of measuring it is by looking at the number of olfactory receptor genes, part of the DNA that produces proteins in the nose that can recognize odor molecules. In a 2014 study, which was published in the journal Genome Research, scientists count the number of olfactory receptor genes in mammals. Result: the African elephant occupies the highest position with a total of 198 genes. For comparison, humans only have 396 genes, dogs 811, and rats to 1207. These results make sense. Remembering elephants rely heavily on smell to find food, recognize his family members, detecting threats, and even know the short time when couples are ready to mate. But the study compared 13 species, mammals, and does not include bears, animals that are anecdotally known, has an unusually sharp sense of smell. Other indicators of olfactory power can be seen from the size. Olfactory bulb, part of the brain that processes smells. Dog known for his skill at tracking scent, has a much bigger olfactory bulb. Of man, according to study Comparative Year 2011, published in International Journal of Morphology, among the birds, turkey carcass occupies the top spot, thanks to its ability to remotely detect carcasses, but is the size of olfactory bulb really has to do with olfactory acuity. A 2011 review in the journal Science mentions the number of neurons in the factory chapter, relatively the same across different species, regardless of the size. This means size may not be the best indicator. Other ways of assessing the power of smell is to see the ability to recognize certain scents. African pouch rats, for example, known to be very sharp in recognizing odors. Tobias Ackles, that is Sensory Dynamics and Behavior Lab, the University of Bonn, explaining that these rats can be trained to detect landmines and even used to sniff out TBC disease. In humans, outside the vertebrate world, the male moth might just be the champ. Moths are champions in terms of olfactory sensitivity, said Gabriella Wolf, neuroetologue Dari Case, Western Reserve University. Remember, males can find females that are up to 5 kilometers away, only by detecting pheromones. In some cases, a male can recognize the presence of females just from one pheromone molecule, said Wolf. That is the highest level of sensitivity that can be imagined. Sharks also have an unusually sharp sense of smell, much more sensitive than humans, that they use when hunting and mating. Some species are able to detect chemicals in water with concentrations as low as 1 part per 10 billion. Yet the popular claim that sharks can smell a drop of blood in the ocean is actually a myth. Menuret, American Museum of Natural History,